of Colorado Springs.
It was heard for miles and miles away.
Is this what's going on here in Colorado Springs? A terrorist attack?
Is this just the first in a wave of potentially deadly detonations?
They found 104 sticks of dynamite under the railroad bridge.
Were they going to blow up the train?
Lieutenant Joe Kenda is on a desperate search to uncover the truth before disaster strikes again.
How dare you?
A bomber is probably the most dangerous criminal. He doesn't care who he kills. Anytime you decide to take a course of action that your heart tells you is wrong, listen to your heart. Don't do something that you would be sorry for the rest of your life.
Things are quieting down for the night in the west side neighborhood of Old Colorado City. In a house on North 24th Street, David Hughes and his son are settling in for the night.
Dave Hughes and his son are at home.
Can I watch the show, Dad? Please, I want to record it.
There's a rock concert getting ready to come on TV, and his son's pretty excited.
Not into rock music. My wife and I are very much into classical music.
All right, simmer down now. We can watch it.
Yes!
So they were just listening to music and enjoying the evening when all of a sudden...
Whoa, cool!
When the huge explosion took place, at first he thought it was part of the concert, but it was a very big explosion, and I could tell it was.
Stay here. I'll be right back.
From a distance, David Hughes sees the smoke and wreckage left by the blast.
The explosion blew out the wall of the bank. There was damage done to at least one car. This wasn't an accident in any manner, shape, or form.
Across town, a young homicide detective is paying his dues, working the night shift.
I'd only been in investigations for a year and a half, so I did a 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift that nobody really wanted.
Look alive, Tony. It's Kenda.
The dispatcher called me and said the fire department was on the scene of an explosion at an FDIC-protected bank.
Typically, a homicide unit wouldn't be called to a bank explosion, but there was information obtained that there might be a night janitor working in the bank at the time who was unaccounted for.
People believed that they were going to find human remains under the rubble.
Came on the way. Time to wake up, Tony. Looks like we got something.
Okay. When we got to the scene, barricades had been set up by the police department to keep onlookers away from explosive remains. It's an enormous hole. You could walk through this hole. So is this a bank robbery and the method of entry is an explosive? The damage to the exterior wall would indicate that someone is gaining entry into this place.
It was almost like a movie scene where somebody wants to rob that bank and they're going to bomb the building to get inside.
How you doing?
Detective?
You know if these guys got into the vault?
Not yet. The bomb squad hadn't reported back yet.
Let's take a look.
Yes, sir.
There's a massive effort underway to find physical evidence, and they literally sift, leaving things behind on top of the screen that can be examined.
You're sifting to find out exactly how the bomb was made, possibly what type of components were used, and even maybe what type of explosive was used.
Detectives, gentlemen. You know if there's any victims yet?
Not yet. The branch manager says the custodian works every other weekend. Doesn't know if he's working this weekend or not.
All right, talk to the bank manager, get the custodian's home address. Let's send someone over. Maybe he made it home before this thing went off.
Yes, sir.
While the other officers try and track down the missing janitor, Kenda moves in to learn more about the explosion.
You smell that?
There was a very acrid chemical smell, in fact, even irritating to your eyes.
It's dynamite. Nothing else in the world smells like that.
They could immediately tell from the odor in the air that this was a commercial explosive, i.e. dynamite. Military ordnance has a different odor.
So it wasn't stolen from Fort Peterson or Fort Carson?
Definitely not.
Well, that's certainly helpful. I'm sure there's no shortage of that stuff in town.
There are many places that utilize explosives in routine work. The mining industry is the most common example, particularly in Colorado, where there's hard rock mines still active to this day.
Any idea where it came from?
Can't be for sure just yet, but we are trying to figure out how much was used here.
Right.
Take a look at this.
Those guys discover fragments of a timing device. When the minute hand strikes, it causes an electrical impulse to go to a blasting cap and kaboom. The only reason for a timing device is to allow escape for the bomber. We're not dealing with an amateur. This is someone who really understands explosives and how to use them.
You need to know a little bit about explosives to detonate a bomb. Amateur bombers end up blowing themselves up.
This limits the pool of potential suspects dramatically.
Anything else?
Yeah, a bit of bad news. It appears the manufacturer of this didn't put serial numbers on it.
So it can't be traced.
I'm afraid not.
Let's check out the bomb.
With the bomb squad's findings in hand, Kenda heads to the vault to see what the thieves made off with.
Upon view of the interior of that bank, the bank safe vault door was absolutely intact and untouched.
Yeah, I don't see a scratch on it.
I don't either.
As far as we can tell, the vault wasn't touched.
Maybe there wasn't time. What about the tellers? Were those drawers hit?
Let's go see. There's money right out in full view. I mean, who wouldn't have grabbed that?
Well, either there wasn't enough time, or they're the worst robbers in history.
None of the registers had been tampered with. It didn't look like robbery was a motive.
Wait a minute. Maybe we're barking up the wrong tree.
If you're going to blow up a bank and you don't intend to rob it, what is the purpose of your effort?
One potential answer to that question sends chills down everyone's spine.
Back in the late 70s, there was some terrorism acts going on.
There were certainly incidents involving the use of explosives by terrorist groups. They were domestic in nature. They were relatively small. Their thing was anarchy and, capitalism is evil.
So you're wondering then, is this what's going on here in Colorado Springs? We're being attacked by a fanatical group that's out to bomb our national banks?
There's an awful lot of military around here. Colorado Springs would be a prime target for some of the political agenda.
We all started looking at each other like, what if this is just the first one?
At this point, the threat level is very high. If we're looking at terrorism, is there other potential targets? We have to be on heightened senses of alert here to find out what's going on.
CSPD sends emergency surveillance units to major landmarks in the city to keep watch throughout the night.
Can you see radio?
Yeah.
So we start checking calls for service in the general part of the city.
Dispatch, has there been any calls of note on the west side tonight?
Units are searching for 3 men who robbed a grocery store at gunpoint, 8 blocks northwest of your location.
8 blocks? Dispatch, what time was this robbery?
The panic button was triggered at 9:06 p.m.
That's 7 minutes after the bank explosion.
Yeah.
10-4 Kenda out. I want you to stay here. I'll head to the grocery store.
You got it.
News of the nearby robbery shifts Kenda's attention away from the domestic terrorism theory and towards a more practical motive behind the bombing.
What if they decided to set off this bomb to draw the police to the bank location
this could be a diversionary tactic so that these individuals could rob the store and not be worried about an immediate police presence.
If that is true, it absolutely worked, because every police officer on the West Side was at that bank. Is this just a coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. We're investigating a bank bombing, which initially we think could be a robbery or even a case of domestic terrorism. Then we discover there's been a major robbery a few blocks away within minutes of the explosion. Could this explosion just be a diversion for the armed robbery?
Determined to find out if the two crimes are linked, Kenda heads to the grocery store that was the target of the robbery.
Is there anything else you need to tell me?
Not that I can think of.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me exactly what happened?
There were these two guys. They both had Halloween masks on. Good evening. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Very well. Is that everything for you today?
Everybody get the down! Get down! Get down! What are you doing back there? Get down!
Grocery stores in 1978 commonly received a great deal of cash from customers, much more so than they do today.
Keep that head down!
Because credit cards were not in common use. So they present a tempting target to somebody with a gun who wants to demand money.
Let's get out of here.
They fire no shots. They're not there to hurt anybody. They're there to get the money. And they immediately run out of the business.
Am I going to lose my job over this? I can't afford to lose this job.
It's okay. No one's going to fire you.
Okay.
You're not the first one this has happened to.
Okay.
Did you happen to get a look at the car they were driving?
They weren't in a car. They ran off on foot. That way.
We need to get some guys out there right now before they get too far.
We're already on it.
All right, well, thank you. Sorry this happened.
A few hundred yards away, near Fountain Creek, officers have already picked up the robber's trail.
Footprints.
As investigators follow the footprints,
Damn it.
they actually end up walking right into the creek. Now, this is not a very deep creek, so it was obvious that whoever had left these footprints probably entered the creek, came out the other side, Highway 24. It would have been easy to have a getaway vehicle parked right there, and that's probably what happened.
Yeah, this is Thompson. We found some footprints, but we lost them.
10-4. Thompson, make sure you check in with headquarters before you leave the area. No sign detected.
I'm going to head back to the bank. Thank you.
We find no one. And in addition, the clerk is of little use in terms of his witness information. This work can be very frustrating. Most of the time, nothing works out. Particularly it's the middle of the night, you're tired, you want to go home, but here we are. That's what we do for a living.
Back at the bank, Kenda receives some much-needed good news.
We just got word. They've located the custodian and can now confirm that there were no casualties in that explosion.
Well, that's a good thing.
That's not the only positive development. The FBI has joined CSPD in the investigation.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
This is an FDIC-protected national bank. A crime against the bank is a federal offense. This is now a federal investigation. The special agent in charge of this particular case is a Sam Norrie.
What about the grocery store? The robbery there? A few minutes after this? I mean, what are the odds?
Yeah, I agree. And we're also kicking around the idea that it might be domestic terrorism, like the Weather Underground. But it's been over 3 hours since the explosion. Nobody's gotten any calls.
The hallmark of a terrorist event is claim of responsibility. They'll contact the press in the middle of the night so they get their message out there.
Is there anything I can do to help you guys out?
As a matter of fact, would you mind taking statements from all these rubberneckers? They might know something we don't.
Absolutely.
Back in 1978, the FBI had just a local field office here with a couple of agents. Because of their manpower shortage, they sometimes would request the assistance of, like, the Colorado Springs Police Department.
So we see if there's anybody that saw a car, anybody that saw an individual running past, anyone that might have some knowledge of the explosion.
Did you happen to notice anything unusual? Any people, vehicles leaving the scene?
Well, I heard it. I
think it was guys from out there.
From where?
There are always people wandering around loose who perhaps shouldn't be allowed to wander around loose, who want to tell you that they think it was the Martians, and they probably have some sort of death ray that acts like an explosive.
Area 51? Roswell? Oh, they're not happy with us, man.
And you're standing there going, right, well, I didn't think about that.
We'll definitely look into that.
Be careful.
The trouble with opening the door to the general public is the general public tends to walk through it.
But not everyone the CSPD interviews offers up a half-baked conspiracy.
A guy by the name of Adam White, who advised that he'd just been out for a walk that evening and actually saw somebody bending down next to the wall of the bank, but didn't think much of it.
And then after like 10 minutes, the same guy came tearing past me. That's when I heard the bomb go off.
He said he put two and two together and said that guy that ran by me is probably the guy who set that bomb.
Did you happen to get a good look at this guy?
Oh, yeah. He had a face you'd never forget.
Here is the magic bullet. Mr. Adam White saw this guy, passed him within 2 feet of him. We are ecstatic.
Do you mind coming down to the station talking to our sketch artist?
Police bring in a sketch artist, and over the next half hour, he works with Adam White to create a composite portrait of the suspect.
No, man. His eyes were bigger.
Bigger than that?
Like, big.
Okay.
You ask a witness, do you know a white male who's 5'6" and weighs 145 pounds and has a mustache? Well, yes, I know 14 guys like that. A drawing is much more effective.
Hey, detective. You might want to come look at this.
That's the joke, right?
That's what he's describing.
This is a drawing of the strangest individual I've ever seen. How could anyone look like this? At this point in this investigation, we have discovered an eyewitness who has seen the bomber, and he has produced a drawing that can only be described as bizarre. I'm looking at this thinking we thought we had the witness of a lifetime, and look at this.
And I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but how accurate is this sketch?
That's exactly what he looked like.
And you're sure?
That's the guy, man.
It looks like our suspect is somebody that just came out of a sci-fi movie.
There you go.
What the hell is that?
That, my friend, is your bomber.
I said, I think he's from Mars. What do you think? Maybe the first wingnut witness we came up with was right. He is from outer space.
Hey, Carl. Why don't you some of the guys circulate these around the neighborhood so you can't remember someone who looks like that? Yeah, I know. Just do it.
Yes, sir.
On the upside, this drawing is so distinctive that if anyone has seen this suspect, they're going to remember it from this drawing.
You ever seen this guy before?
I didn't really see anything.
We canvass the neighborhood, but we come up empty. No one has seen our strange-looking person in our drawing on the night of the bank bombing or on any other night. Our drawing is comically worthless.
Unable to ID a possible suspect, Kenda and the feds regroup in the morning to plot a new course.
So we have a robbery and we have an explosion.
We had a meeting with the FBI and our guys. We started kicking around ideas.
Your first thoughts are, this could be a group of guys that have robbed other stores. They're probably drug addicts or whatnot, need money. If this robbery was successful, they'll probably try again.
Well, my first post in investigations was in the robbery unit. And we usually found these stick-up guys that have some sort of a pattern because they're lazy.
You said that the clerk mentioned they were wearing Halloween masks, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they found this to be successful, they may do this again and wear the same masks.
I think it's worth doing some digging around, seeing if there's been any similar robberies in the area.
We'll run it through Rimmon as soon as I get a chance.
Okay, guys, let's get to work.
That afternoon, Kenda scours the Rimmon database for armed robberies with a similar MO.
RIM is Rocky Mountain Information Network, which gathers information from all the local law enforcement agencies and charts different types of crimes, what's going on.
It was computer-driven, even in 1978. This was state-of-the-art technology.
Well, that was easy.
We determined in a very short period of time, same guys, same Halloween masks, up and down the Front Range, robbing grocery stores in the same way.
This is Kenda. I think I might have found the guys at your grocery store.
What makes you so sure?
Same Halloween masks.
Same MO. So do these guys typically create a diversion?
Blow something up or whatever? Well, no, that's the one problem.
The striking fact is there was no diversionary incident in any one of those other robberies. No explosion, no car fire, no other event of any kind. That, to us, was significant.
So you're thinking these guys who did the robbery are not the same guys who blew up the bank?
Strange as it may sound, yes.
So even though we don't believe in coincidences, we may have encountered one here.
A few hours later, authorities in Denver confirm that the bank job and the grocery store heist were, in fact, unrelated.
You guys a little old for trick-or-treating?
Denver PD calls because they monitor Rimmon as well, and they say, hey, we got him.
You guys have been busy.
We have them under arrest. It's the guys. They got the Halloween mask, got the guns, everything.
Hey, Blake, didn't Colorado Springs send out a bulletin about masked guys bombing banks?
That's right. Can you tell me anything about the bank bombing?
All right.
The result says we're robbers. We don't think about that.
What's more, the explosion that demolished the west wall of the bank came from a bomb with a timed detonator, something only an expert could build.
They're a group of morons. They're not smart enough to organize a trip to the bathroom. They wouldn't know how to build a bomb if you give them the directions.
All right, I'll see you.
When we report to Nuri that it's not them, absolutely not them, he said, okay, well, that's out, but now we got another thing. Could you go over to this railroad trestle where we've got some guys?
Okay.
They found 104 sticks of dynamite.
Really?
In a container under the railroad bridge at this location. Wow, okay.
I'll head over there.
This added a new twist to the story. The fact that the bomb at the bank was dynamite, it just made the case stranger and stranger. Were they going to blow up the train?
So what do we got?
Well, somebody walking by actually spotted it, called it in. It's just a box, though. There's no detonator.
So dynamite on a railroad, isn't that ATF's jurisdiction?
Yep, actually it is. They'll be here any minute.
We're all excited that maybe this is connected in some way.
But the ATF quickly determines this dynamite and the dynamite used at the bank are not the same.
Sticks of dynamite used in that explosion had nothing written on them, no emblems or any information. This dynamite had manufacturer's information printed on the sticks.
This explosive could not have been used in the bank robbery. Now, it's interesting that it's been abandoned under a railroad bridge, but be that as it may, it's not connected to the bank, and that's all we're concerned about at this point.
The ATF will be taking over the investigation into the cache of dynamite.
People steal dynamite from the army, from the mines, from wherever in the hopes of being able to sell it on the black market. The feds interrupted it in this case before the dynamite got into the wrong hands. But for our case, it was just another dead end.
With no leads, Kenda and the FBI are struggling to find a way forward. So instead, they go backward.
Okay, guys, this is what we know so far. Our robbery guys, there's no connection. The dynamite at the railroad doesn't match with our bomb. And our crazy bug-eyed guy, don't even get me started on that. This is where we're at, folks. I'm open to any suggestions.
Back to the original question. Why would you blow up a bank if you're not going to take any money?
We're sitting there staring at each other with blank looks in our faces, trying to decide what the motivation was for this, when it hit me.
I've got a thought. Now, hear me out on this.
The motivation has been staring us in the face the entire time. At this point in the investigation, we've been sort of tunnel visioned, but now we come up with a new theory.
Now, hear me out on this. Nobody died in the explosion, right? Well, maybe that's not a coincidence. And we've got a custodian that works every single night, except for one Saturday every 2 weeks. We've got a very careful bomber. Maybe he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Maybe the bank was the intended target.
Our man has a motive, and the motive is revenge.
I think we need to start looking at people that feel they were wronged by the bank.
Now, who could that be? Banks always have a list of enemies because they're in the money business, and money makes emotions run high.
This could be a long list. I know a lot of people pissed off their bank.
That's true. But we only need to find the one individual who's angry enough to blow up this bank. And Kenda, you and your guys up for a little more legwork?
Absolutely. Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Detective Joe Kenda.
Oh. Nice to meet you. Please.
So we speak to the bank manager, and he comes up with quite a few people, some of whom appear to be, on the surface, quite interesting.
Scott Andrews.
Who's that?
Well, he used to work for the bank.
He was a short-term teller at the bank who was fired for being inefficient and being sort of a difficult person for the other employees to get along with.
He actually had to be physically removed from the bank. We're gonna have to let you go.
Why?
Things just aren't working out the way that we'd hoped.
When the bank manager terminated him, he had an absolute tirade.
You son of a bitch. Screw you and everyone in this place.
Scott, calm down.
Calm down? You want me to calm down? Let's take this outside. I'll show you efficiency.
Security!
He was absolutely screaming at the manager, I'm going to get even with you. I'm going to get even with everybody in this bank.
And you think you'd be mad enough to do something like this?
To be honest with you, the way things ended, I wouldn't put anything past him.
So we immediately went to see him. He admits that he's extremely angry with this bank.
Because I got fired, this is the best I could do. Actually, I'm glad somebody blew that place up.
But it wasn't you.
Of course not.
Can you prove it?
Yeah, actually, I can. We can go inside and talk to my manager. He'll tell you I was here.
Let's do that.
The manager confirms Scott Andrews' alibi.
Mr. Andrews was working the night shift where they do cleanup work and get ready for the next day's business in front of several coworkers.
With Scott Andrews cleared as a suspect, Kenda wonders. Perhaps the bomber wasn't a pissed-off employee, but a disgruntled customer.
Are there customers you can think of that might be capable of something like this?
Banks are sort of loved and hated by people. On the one hand, you go there to borrow money or to, have a savings account or whatever. But on the other hand, if you run into some financial problems and the bank comes after you, there could really be a lot of animosity.
Richard Jenkins.
Okay.
Got a loan from us for a boat, a big boat. Not long after, it was destroyed in a fire. And then he stopped paying on the loan.
Well, the bank called the note. We want the money. Mr. Jenkins said, I don't have the boat. Well, that's not our problem, Mr. Jenkins. You have the money, and we want you to repay it. Well, I'm not going to do that.
Then he wrote us a letter.
What's it say?
That we are the devil's institution, and if he were that type of guy, and I quote, he would blow this place to smithereens.
Well, now, Mr. Jenkins, how interesting you would say that, because that's what somebody did.
Later that afternoon, Kenda and an FBI agent pay a surprise visit to Richard Jenkins.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Now, this bombing is all over the news. So, Mr. Jenkins has a knowing look on his face.
This has something to do with the bank bombing, right?
Correct.
And the letter I wrote to the bank?
Correct again.
I said, before you say anything else, we'd like to advise you of your rights.
Do you understand these rights that I've spoken to you?
Yes.
And you're willing to talk to us about the letter?
Yes.
He was very cooperative, almost as if he was resigned to being talked to. Initially, that kind of piqued our interest.
Okay.
Listen, when I wrote that letter, I was just blowing out some steam.
Some pretty strong words.
You don't understand. They're threatening to take my house away. They claimed I owed money on some boat I didn't even have anymore.
He still doesn't understand. He believes because the boat is gone, the loan is gone. He doesn't get it.
You understand how this looks, don't you, Richard?
Look, I wasn't anywhere near the bank when it blew up. I was having drinks with my wife at this bar we go to. Everyone there knows me, they'll tell you.
He gave us a lot of information, the waiter's name, the bartender's name. So we'd make phone calls to verify the story, and it checks out. Mr. Jenkins, we confirm, is in fact in this restaurant bar with his wife, talking to the bartender, with the waiter, and so on until well past the time this bombing took place.
Well, Mr. Jenkins, sorry to bother you.
As promising as Mr. Jenkins was, he becomes another wisp of smoke.
Tell the people at the bank I'll be paying their filthy money.
Fine. We recommend that you do it, Mr. Jenkins. Have a pleasant afternoon.
Treading water once again, Kenda and the bank manager decide to go through each complaint with a fine-toothed comb.
Some have a beef with the bank and they don't like the bank, but they don't have the means to necessarily build a bomb and blow it up.
Again, we're talking about a sophisticated device. We're looking not just for some irate guy. He's an irate guy that knows what he's doing.
A name pops up, Victor Shea.
Take a look at this guy.
Victor is an individual whose 19-year-old son's truck had been repossessed by the bank, and he was very displeased with that.
Here's a letter from the repossession agency we sent to seize the truck.
The note said they went to Mr. Shea's home to seize this car. Mr. Shea engaged in a violent verbal confrontation, and they left the area and did not repossess this truck at that time.
You guys sure bring out the best in people.
Sometimes people don't feel like paying the money back that we loaned them.
Do you happen to have the employment information on Mr. Shea or his son?
Looks like he works at the Colorado Mining Company. Here's his auto loan application.
If you're mining anything in Colorado, you got to blow things up. All of a sudden, this guy emerges as whoa.
Do you mind if I use your phone?
Oh, sure.
Not only is he an angry guy, he is the very first angry bank guy that has access to anything that goes bang. Victor Shea works for a mining company in Cripple Creek, Colorado. They've been around for well over 100 years. They've bought enough explosives over that period of time to blow up the entire state of Colorado.
In the 1970s, mining companies didn't keep detailed records about their stockpiles. Kenda knows it wouldn't be hard for an employee to make off with small amounts of explosives.
They maintain what is referred to as a quantity inventory, which in reality is the pile looks as big today as it did yesterday. They don't pay any attention to it.
So an employee of a company who uses explosives knows what explosives are used, how much is used in a particular day. He could steal 2 or 3 sticks at a time and not worried about being caught.
But it's not just Victor Shea's access to explosives that makes him the prime suspect. It's his recent run-in with the bank that was blown up.
If you find someone who is upset with the bank, works for a mining company, you sort of put 2 and 2 together.
Piecing this theory together, police reach out to the repo man who had the run-in with Victor and his son.
This was a truck that had been purchased by Johnny Shea, who is Victor Shea's son, with a loan he had gotten from the bank, and he had stopped making payments on the loan, and therefore the repossession company was instructed to go recover the truck.
Oh, yeah, I remember. One of the most uncomfortable situations I've ever been in.
We understand there's some sort of problem?
Yeah, there was. First of all, this kid, Johnny, he lived with his parents. The bank sent me out to their place to repossess his truck, gotten a little behind on the payments. I was about to learn why.
According to the repo man, when he showed up at the house, Johnny's truck was out front, but so were a lot of other cars.
It was all these cars. Looked like some kind of a party going on. So I get out and I go up, I knock on the door.
He doesn't like to just take a car off someone's property without them understanding why it's happening. And a woman answers the door.
Yes? Excuse me, ma'am. I'm here to take possession of a truck owned by Johnny Shea. Apparently he's gotten a little delinquent with the payments he had on the auto loan with the bank.
What the repossession employee had no way of knowing, Johnny Shea had been killed in a motor vehicle accident where he was a passenger. The family was having a wake in the house when the repossession man knocked on the door.
Ma'am?
How dare you?
You could not select worst moment in time to attempt a repossession of the deceased's property.
I just stood there in shock, and she just lit into me. And then the dad, Victor, he came to the door, and he started yelling at me, too.
Mr. Shea confronted the agent and told him to get off his property. He wasn't going to repossess anything.
I got out of there. I didn't take the truck or nothing. Our company sent some other guy, maybe a week later, to pick it up.
Can you imagine how awful that would be? Here you are dealing with your son's death. It's like, have some compassion.
Shea was not happy with the fact that it was actually repoed, called the bank and raised all kinds of cane with the bank. That how could they do that, and why would they come to his house and take his son's truck like they did? You can understand his displeasure with the bank over what happened.
Later that day, Kenda and lead FBI agent Sam Norrie head over to the Shea residence.
Our hope is we can get Victor Shea to confess. If he will just tell us what he did, we can put this whole case to bed.
But they're about to get more than they bargained for.
When he answered the door, we just stared at him. We couldn't say a word.
Can I help you?
He was that drawing.
Hello?
His eyes were.
All this while, we've dismissed that drawing as meaningless. And here he is in the flesh.
We're with the FBI and the CSPD. We need to speak with you about an incident that occurred at your bank recently.
He immediately dropped his head and said, "I knew you'd be coming for me." Well, okay.
What's going on?
Honey, it's... Victor, why don't you say your goodbyes to your wife?
Wait, goodbye? What did you do? Vic.
We allowed him to say goodbye to his wife. We explained to her that the FBI has jurisdiction, that he'll be arraigned in front of a federal judge, and the agents will remain in contact with her to tell her the process.
No.
It was a horrible thing all the way around. No one really wanted to be part of this.
I'm very sorry.
We didn't handcuff him or anything. We didn't think it was necessary. And the FBI put him in their car, and we never saw him again.
What you did was wrong, but every one of us here feels for you.
There is no greater pain than the loss of a loved one. That pain can only be increased by the fact of you having to bury a child. They're supposed to bury you, not the other way around.
Are you sure you don't want to make a statement?
I'm gonna need a lawyer.
All right, Victor. Have it your way.
The FBI informed me that they tried to interrogate him and he remained silent. But truth be known, I'm sure that the repossession guy showing up took the sadness and pain away from him.
He didn't know?
And directed it into white-hot rage against the bank. I am certain that he assumed the bank knew exactly what was going on in his house, which they did not, and he therefore believed that they deserved what they were going to get. Revenge is as old as time. When people feel wronged, they want to feel right. You've given them pain. They would like to return the favor. He thought blowing up their bank and costing them many, many thousands of dollars would draw the chalkboard even somehow.
When he decided that he was going to blow up the bank, he knew that he couldn't be taking a large amount of dynamite out of his workplace all at once. So he methodically took a couple of sticks at a time until he got enough to do the job.
He constructed a device, knew how to do it. He'd routinely been around people that did it for a living.
Mr. Shea went to the bank at about 9 o'clock, went to the west wall and set that bomb up and set the timer, and then ran away.
He ran past an eyewitness woman home, and within a few minutes, kaboom. He blows it up on a weekend when they're not open for business, when there's nobody in the building. It only damages the bank. He remained in his house undetected for some period of time while we investigated this case. But people get found, and people are brought to justice. It's the way the system works.
What Victor Shea did was deplorable. You know, you can't take your revenge out.
The night it happens, it starts as something that should have been forgotten by morning. A broken taillight on a West Texas highway. A pickup drifting over the center line. A young deputy, half an hour from the end of his shift, thinking more about the coffee waiting at home than the driver in front of him. Just another routine traffic stop at 2:17 a.m. He eases the cruiser in behind the truck and flips on the lights. Red and blue wash over scrub and fence posts, painting the dust like a crime scene that hasn't happened yet. The pickup slows, signal blinking, then rolls onto the shoulder in a spray of gravel. The deputy radios his position and the plate number with the flat cadence of someone who's done this 100 times. He steps out, boots crunching, one hand resting on his holster out of habit more than fear. The air feels wrong. Too still. He tells himself it's nothing, just fatigue. He walks up to the driver's window, raises his flashlight, and meets the eyes of a man who has spent 38 years learning how not to flinch. The driver's face is lined, sunburned, carved up by time and bad choices. But he is calm. Too calm. No nervous glance. No estame. No fumbling for excuses. He smells like gasoline, stale coffee, cigarettes. His hands rest on the steering wheel, fingers loose, palms open, like he has rehearsed the scene. The deputy asks for license and registration. The man passes them over without a word. Back in the cruiser, the in-car computer hums. The deputy types in the name, the date of birth, hits enter. He expects the usual. A citation, a suspended license, maybe an old fine. The screen pauses a beat too long. Then it spits out a hit that tightens his throat. There's a warrant. Old. Out of state. Cross-referenced with a note from a database he almost never sees triggered. Person of interest. Homicide. Texas. 1987. Below that, one more line that doesn't belong on a sleepy highway at 2 a.m. Contact originating agency. Cold case. Do not release without supervisor notification. He reads it again. Homicide. 1987. Cold case. The words don't fit the night outside, the hum of insects, the faint heat still rising from the road. Suddenly, he feels like the shoulder beneath his tires has dropped out from under him. He picks up the radio again, voice tighter now. Requests backup. Asks for a supervisor. Gives the name he sees on the screen. The name comes back like an echo from someone else's life. Daniel Cross. To the deputy, it means nothing. Just another stranger. To a cardboard box in a basement evidence room, it's a curse underlined in faded red ink. To a family that stopped setting an extra place at the table decades ago, it is the sound of an old wound tearing open. The deputy steps out again, night suddenly heavier, hand firm on his weapon. He orders the driver out of the truck. The man obeys without protest, slides down from the cab, turns, and lets himself be cuffed in the flashing lights. No argument. No surprise. No question of what did I do. If anything, there's the faintest flicker of something like relief in his eyes as he glances toward the dark fields. As if he can already hear the line that will be written before sunrise. Texas 1987 cold case solved, routine traffic stop uncovers fugitive. Inside the station, the alert moves fast, carried by calls and screens and the quiet spike of adrenaline that comes when a dead file twitches. Someone pulls an old case number from a system that doesn't like reaching back that far. Someone else scrolls past a summary that once led every local newscast and now lives in 3 dry sentences. Female, 22 missing. Vehicle recovered. Foul play suspected. People who were in grade school in 1987 suddenly know they're standing inside someone else's unfinished story. For everyone else, for now, it's just a strange blip on the night's log. A traffic stop that turned into something bigger. A man with an old warrant. A database hit no one expected. The full weight of what has just happened won't land until a newsroom drags an old photograph out of the archives and lays it beside the name that dropped into their feed. Until a grown man sees his mother's face on a screen again and feels the floor tilt under him. Because the truth of this moment doesn't live in the cuffs clamped around Daniel Cross's wrists. It lives 38 years earlier, on another hot Texas night, when a young woman locked up a diner, crossed a parking lot, and drove into a kind of darkness you don't come back from. To understand why this arrest feels like the ground cracking open, you have to go back to the beginning. Back to July 3rd, 1987. Back to a small town that still believed monsters live somewhere else. Summer there doesn't cool when the sun goes down. It just gets darker. On that night, the neon sign over the only 24-hour diner hums and flickers, red and white light bleeding into the gravel lot. Inside, the air tastes like coffee, grease, and tired people trying to make it through one more shift, one more haul, one more night. Emily Hart moves between the tables with the kind of tired grace that comes from necessity. 22. Ponytail. Faded uniform. A name tag the plastic has started to crack on. To the regulars, she's the girl who remembers their orders without writing them down. To herself, she's a mother trying to keep the lights on and a roof over her son's head. To the man in the corner booth by the window, she is something else entirely. He's been there for over an hour. Alone. Same booth. Cap pulled low, jacket on despite the heat. He eats slowly, drinks slower, lets his coffee go cold. Sometimes he pretends to read the menu or stare out at the empty highway, but his eyes always come back to her. A measuring gaze, noticing when she's alone in the aisle, noticing when there's no one at the counter, learning the rhythm of the room. Emily feels it, the small electric prickle at the back of the neck. She jokes about it to the cook, leaning through the pass window. "Corner guy gives me the creeps," she says. "If I disappear, check his booth first." They laugh, because what else can you do? You need the shift. You swallow the unease with the coffee. The jukebox clicks off. A deputy from the sheriff's office drops by for pie, leaves, tells Emily to have a good night. By a little after 1, it's down to a couple of stragglers and the man in the corner booth. When she drops off his check, he finally speaks. The voice is low, unremarkable. "Busy tonight," he says. She gives him the same automatic smile. "Holiday weekend," she replies. "Everyone's passing through." He leaves cash on the table. More than the bill. The kind of tip that would usually feel like a blessing. Tonight it feels like something else. A small, heavy stone dropped into a well you can't see the bottom of. When she comes back to clear the dishes, he's gone. No bell over the door sticks in her memory. No flash of headlights. Just an empty booth, a ring of coffee on the table, and the money under the salt shaker. She glances out through the window. The parking lot is still. Her blue Chevy sits under the street lamp, paint dulled. Beyond the circle of yellow light, the highway is a black river. Whatever truck he drives is somewhere in that darkness now. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's closer than she thinks. At 1:06 a.m., Emily clocks out. She hangs her apron, runs a hand through her hair, presses her fingers to the small photograph of her son tucked into her wallet. One more night done. One more step toward a future she hasn't dared to imagine. She crosses the empty dining area and pushes out into the night. The heat hits her first. Then the sound. Insects, distant engines, the soft hum of the neon sign. Gravel crunches under her shoes as she walks toward her car. She digs for her keys, yawning, already thinking about the babysitter she has to pay, the groceries she has to buy, the way her son's hair sticks up when he wakes. Above her, the street lamp buzzes and flares, then dims, then flares again, caught between working and giving up. Out beyond the edge of that weak light, an engine idles with its headlights off. Close enough to see her. Far enough that she doesn't see it. Not yet. The pickup waits just beyond the circle of diner light, engine low, headlights dark. When Emily's Chevy rolls out of the lot and turns toward Route 16, the truck eases off the curb and slips in behind her. In her rear view, it's just another pair of headlights on a hot Texas road. The town falls away behind her. The road narrows, then straightens into the long black strip that cuts through fields and pasture. The radio finally catches a station, a half-faded country song about going home. Mile marker 23 flashes white, then 24. She thinks about the babysitter, about the tip money in her pocket, about waking her little boy to carry him from the car to his bed. Somewhere past marker 25, the truck changes its mind. It creeps closer until its beams fill her mirror, white and blinding. She squints, eases off the gas. Maybe it's someone impatient. Maybe they want to pass. She taps the brake, slides a little toward the shoulder to give them room. The truck drifts with her, staying locked to her bumper. The high beam strobe once, twice, again, deliberate, like a signal. Her pulse kicks. The road is empty. No houses, no gas stations, just dark and the suggestion of fence lines in her headlights. She tells herself he's trying to warn her. Smoke, loose wheel, something wrong she can't see. This is still an era when you can almost believe that. She cracks her window, listening for a thud or scrape. The car sounds fine. The horn blares. That's what makes her decide. She pulls fully onto the shoulder, gravel pinging the undercarriage. The Chevy rocks to a stop, idling. For a moment she just sits, hands locked on the wheel, eyes on the mirror. The truck rolls up behind her and stops at an angle, like it wants to keep one tire in the lane. The driver's door opens. He steps into her taillights. Ball cap, jacket, work boots. He raises a hand palm out, like he's rehearsed the gesture. She lowers her window a few inches. "Ma'am, sorry to scare you," he says, voice low and plain. "Think your rear tire's going soft. Saw it wobbling back there. Didn't want you to blow it on a curve." It's exactly the line that fits the moment. Helpful. Reasonable. You feel guilty not at least checking. She hesitates, then cracks the door, one foot on the gravel, leaning out to look. Just a second, she thinks. Then home. The rest is speed, not drama. A hand on the door, ripping it wide. A shoulder driving into her. A muffled sound cut off fast. Boots grinding the gravel. A heel snapping clean from a shoe as it catches on the frame. Less than a minute later, the driver's seat is empty. The engine hums, and the radio keeps playing to no one. The pickup's door slams. Its engine roars. It pulls away, then briefly backs up to smear out the clearest tracks in the loose dirt, and finally disappears down the highway. By the time the dome light drains the last of its glow, the only signs anything happened are a crooked car, an open door, and a single shoe lying in the dust, pointed uselessly toward home. At 2:24 a.m., a man heading home from the plant spots the Chevy. He notices it first as a wrongness, a car too close to the line, sitting at a strange angle. He passes, glances in his mirror, feels his skin prickle. A mile later he pulls into a turnout and sits there for 10 long seconds, arguing with himself. Go home. You're dead tired. Someone else will stop. He turns around. He noses his pickup in behind the Chevy, leaves his engine running. The other car is dark. The driver's door hangs open a few inches, like a question. "Hello," he calls into the night. No answer. He steps closer, sees the purse on the passenger seat, the keys still in the ignition, the single high heel in the dirt. Something in his stomach drops. He retreats to his truck and grabs the radio. The call to dispatch is brief and unsteady. Suspicious vehicle. Route 16, near mile 27. Door open, no driver, belongings still inside. Just doesn't feel right, he adds, because he doesn't have better language for the way the scene feels wrong all the way down. The dispatcher logs it, tones out the nearest unit. A state trooper, already prowling a nearby stretch of highway, hits his lights and turns toward the loneliest part of the map. In years to come, locals will point to that spot and call it one thing, where the girl went missing. He rolls in behind the Chevy, washes it in bright white. Training takes over. Door ajar. Interior light dead. No skid marks. No shattered glass. No sign of a crash. He notes the shoe, the disturbed gravel, the way the car sits like it was pulled over in a hurry. He calls it in, asks for deputies, for a tow, for a registration check. The answer comes back fast. Vehicle registered to an Emily Hart, dispatch says. The name means nothing to him yet, just letters on a screen. By sunrise, word of the abandoned car has begun to leak out in the usual way, through scanners, pillow talk, early morning coffee at the gas station. A baker hears it first, passes it to a delivery driver, who carries it to a clerk, who repeats it to a nurse headed in for day's shift. No body, they say. Purse in the car. Left sometime after midnight. Highway 16. Young woman. Sounds bad. In a small house on a side street, a phone rings long enough to feel ominous. Emily's mother picks it up, already watching the window, already rehearsing reasonable explanations. Late shift. Extra tables. Car trouble. A polite voice on the other end asks to confirm her name, then her daughter's. The words "Sheriff's Office" make the room contract. They ask if she can come down to the station. She asks what's wrong. There is a pause, a careful sentence about her daughter's car being found unattended on the highway, about wanting to make sure she's safe. The mug slips in her hand. Coffee splashes the floor. At the diner, the morning shift walks into a place that already feels different. The manager sits at a corner table with a deputy, Emily's time card between them. The stamped out 1:06 a.m. might as well be carved in stone. Another waitress asks, "She didn't make it home?" The deputy doesn't answer right away. That silence is its own answer. Regulars gather as they always do, but the easy chatter is gone. People hunch over their coffee, talking low. Every time the bell over the door jingles, heads turn, waiting for Emily to walk in with an apology and a story about a flat. She doesn't. Out on Route 16, the sheriff's investigator steps out of his car into the rising heat. Alan Reyes, 34, sharp suit already wilting at the edges. He stands by the Chevy for a long moment before touching anything, eyes moving, brain cataloging. No impact damage. No blood he can see. Just an open door, a scattered life, and small disturbances in the dust that might mean everything or nothing. He feels it then, the weight. He doesn't know it yet, but this is one of those cases that never gets off your shoulders. The search starts fast. Deputies, troopers, volunteers from town. They fan out along the ditches and fence lines, beating through tall grass with sticks, calling her name into the heat. Dogs pull at leashes, noses down, tracing scent until it evaporates in the sun. Someone finds the snapped-off heel farther along the shoulder and bags it. Someone else marks a faint, partial footprint already trampled by too many boots. The day gets hotter. No one wants to be the first to say they're not finding anything. By evening, the phrase "mysterious disappearance" is already being whispered over kitchen tables and in the aisles of the grocery store. A young mom, a lonely highway, an empty car, no guitnisis, no explanation. Parents point to Route 16 on maps and tell their daughters not to drive alone after midnight. The words "cold case" aren't in anyone's mouth yet, but on that first night, as patrol cars finally pull back and the crime scene tape flaps on the signpost at mile marker 27, a thin, unfamiliar chill moves through the heat. Something terrible has happened out here, and for the first time, the town understands that not every story that starts on their roads comes with an ending. By the time the sun burns through the haze over Route 16, the highway looks almost ordinary again. Crime scene tape snaps weakly in the breeze. The marks in the gravel are already softening, wind and passing trucks erasing what little the night left behind. The Chevy is gone, hauled to a secure lot before dawn. Only the memory of its angle, its open door, its red taillights glowing over empty seats, hangs in the air like a ghost. Inside the sheriff's office, there is nothing ordinary about the morning. Phones ring in sharp, overlapping bursts. A fax machine grinds out paper with the slow agony of old machinery. Someone props the break room door open because the air feels too thick. The receptionist keeps glancing at the front entrance, as if expecting Emily to walk in and clear everything up with an apology and a story about a tow truck. In the middle of it all, at a scarred wooden desk pushed up against a wall, Alan Reyes builds a universe out of paper and string. He tacks a map of the county to the wall, smoothing it flat with the side of his hand. A red pin for the diner. Another for the house where Emily lives with her mother and son. A third jabbed into the approximate stretch of Route 16 where her car was found. 3 points. A triangle of 15 miles that should be too small to hide anyone for long. On the desk behind him, the new case file is open. A thin stack now. It will grow. He flips a page, studies the initial patrol report again. Time found. Vehicle condition. Weather. Road surface. Notes on the shoe and the disturbed gravel. The words, "no visible blood," are underlined twice. It shouldn't be a comfort, but it is in a cruel way. It means there's room, however slim, for something other than the worst. Abduction. Voluntary disappearance. Carjacking. He doesn't believe those other words. Not really. Not with a purse left open on the passenger seat and keys still in the ignition. Her mother's here, a deputy says quietly from the doorway. Reyes takes a breath, closes the file, and leaves the map on the wall with its 3 lonely pins. The interview room is bright and bare. No one thought to dim the lights. Emily's mother sits hugging her purse to her chest like it might stop her from shaking. The lines in her face say she has lived enough hard days already. This one is trying to break the record. He introduces himself, offers water she doesn't touch. She keeps her eyes on his tie, like looking at his face would make this all too real. "Tell me about Emily," he says, "because that's where you always start." She talks in bursts. Once she gets going, it's like opening a dam. Emily is a girl, stubborn and soft-hearted, the kind of child who dragged home stray cats and stray friends. Emily in high school, smiling in a borrowed prom dress. Emily pregnant too young, refusing to let that be the end of the story. Emily working double shifts, insisting she could balance everything if she just stayed tired enough. He steers gently to the present. Any enemies? Anyone angry with her? New boyfriends, old boyfriends, debts, fights. Every question feels like an accusation and he hates that, but it's the job. Her mother shakes her head over and over. Emily worked and came home. She went out rarely. She didn't party. Her world was small. Her son, her mother, the diner, the grocery, the laundromat. There was Mark, she says finally, from school, on and off. They argued. Sure, but he wouldn't. She can't finish the sentence. Reyes writes the name down anyway. You always write it down. He asks about the car. Any mechanical problems? Anyone else drive it? Did Emily ever pick up hitchhikers? Her mother flinches. Not with the boy in the car, she says. Not ever, if she listened to me. A pause. But she was kind. Sometimes too kind. He thanks her. Tells her they are doing everything they can. It sounds thin even in his own ears. As he opens the door to let her out, she touches his sleeve, fingers tightening. Please, she says. I lost so much already when her father walked out. Don't let this be another thing that just disappears. Her eyes search his, trying to anchor herself to something solid. I won't stop, he says. It comes out like a vow, heavier than anything he meant to say this early. But he doesn't pull it back. By mid-morning, the front steps of the sheriff's office are speckled with reporters. Local at first, 2 from the small-town paper, 1 from a station an hour away, armed with a camera balanced on his shoulder and a microphone that has seen better days. They hover, lean on the railing, smoke despite the posted signs, trading bits of rumor like currency. At 11 sharp, the sheriff steps out with Reyes at his shoulder. The microphones rise like metal flowers. Cameras blink red. This is how a story becomes a story. The sheriff lays it out in that concise, careful rhythm of lawmen who learn to speak in sound bites. Female, 22, last seen leaving work at local diner shortly after 1 a.m. vehicle found abandoned on Route 16. Driver's door open, personal belongings inside. Possible foul play. They are asking for the public's help. Anyone who saw anything suspicious on the highway, anyone who picked up a hitchhiker, anyone who noticed a strange vehicle lingering near the diner, please call this number. Questions fly. Any suspects? Any sign of a struggle? Has the FBI been called? Is there any reason to believe this is connected to other disappearances along the interstate? Reyes watches the sheriff bat them away one by one. Too early to speculate. No, not yet. They are coordinating with state police. They have no evidence at this time of a serial pattern. He feels the invisible pressure building. Reporters don't like blank spaces. If you don't fill them with facts, they'll fill them with fear. That night, the story sits between commercials for used car lots and fireworks. grainy footage of patrol cars lined along Route 16. A close-up of a shoe in an evidence bag, blurred just enough to be tasteful. A photo of Emily that her mother wishes she had chosen more carefully, hair windblown, eyes squinting into the sun, her son on her hip. The anchor calls it a mysterious disappearance that has left this quiet community on edge. Another voiceover from the field reporter uses the phrase chilling scene and no sign of the missing waitress. No one says cold case on air. Not yet. Still, the words float there, just beyond the microphone's reach, waiting. Early leads come in a flood. Most of them are nothing. People who saw a car but not the driver. People who heard an engine but can't say when. A woman who thinks she glimpsed Emily at a rest area miles away, but who isn't sure because she was turned just so. Every scrap is written down, logged, chased until it breaks apart under scrutiny. The obvious names rise to the top and demand attention. Mark shows up at the station before Reyes can send anyone to him. He walks in angry, scared, jaw clenched. "I heard from her mom," he says in the lobby. "You think I did something, you say to my face." They take him into an interview room, sit him down, let the camera roll. He and Emily have history. On again, off again since they were teenagers. Too much beer, too many bad arguments, the kind of turbulent gravity that pulls people back together even when they know it's a bad idea. Neighbors heard, shouting more than once. "I loved her," he says, voice cracking on the word like it's a fault line. "We fought? Yeah, but I wouldn't leave her on the side of the road." He has an alibi, a double shift on an oil rig 3 hours away, start time logged, co-workers who remember him being there because he's always the one late and this time, weirdly, he wasn't. Reyes drives out himself to walk the metal catwalks, the heat rising from the machinery, the smell of oil clogging his nose, and looks those co-workers in the eye. The story holds. Time cards line up. Mark stays in the file, but the glow of suspicion around his name dims. They track down the father of Emily's son, a man who left before the boy was out of diapers. He's in another state now, working odd jobs and bouncing between addresses like a rock skipping across water. A local cop there sits him down, asks the questions Reyes writes out on a fax. He looks genuinely baffled. Hadn't talked to Emily in years. Didn't know she was missing. His timeline on the night fits his life. A bar, too many drinks, a couch that isn't his. At the diner, Reyes stands at the end of the counter and asks every waitress who was on duty to walk him through the night again. What did Emily say? Who did she serve? Did anyone stand out? They all come back to the same point in their memory, the man in the corner booth. Dark cap, they say. Jacket. Maybe a beard, maybe just stubble. Not tall, not short. Average. One of them says helplessly, as if that's a crime. He paid cash. Bills crumpled from a pocket, not a wallet. His truck, maybe black, maybe dark blue. Old. Could have been a Ford, could have been a Chevy. It was late. The windows were greasy. The parking lot lights kept flickering. One detail catches, the way Emily joked about him. "If I disappear, check his booth," she'd said. Everyone laughed. The memory of that laughter makes their faces twist now, as if they want to reach back in time and slap the joke out of the air. Reyes walks the parking lot with them. He stands in the corner booth, looking out the window as they describe where the man sat, how he watched, where his truck might have been. He imagines headlights off, engine idling, a man sitting very still while the neon buzzes overhead, waiting for the right moment to slip away and trail a blue Chevy into the dark. He canvasses every business along the highway, motels, gas stations, truck stops. He asks for ledgers, registration logs, credit card slips. Owners bristle at the intrusion, then soften when they see Emily's photo on the table. Some remember her from the diner. No one remembers the man in the corner booth for certain. A clerk at a 24-hour gas station thinks he saw a black pickup around 2 a.m., a man buying coffee and smokes, hands black with grease. "Lots of guys like that," he says. "Can't swear it was your guy. Can't swear it was that night." Reyes notes it anyway. The second night after Emily disappears, the town gathers in the church on the hill. The pews fill with faces lit by candlelight, the murmurs of prayer and rumor weaving into the same low hum. The pastor talks about faith and community, and the God who sees even what the darkness hides. Mothers clutch their daughters' hands. Fathers stare straight ahead, jaws tight, calculating every late shift, every lonely road their own kids have to travel. News cameras are there too, lenses drinking in the glow. In the edit bay later, a producer will lay the pastor's words under footage of search parties and the empty, taped-off stretch of Route 16. The headline for that segment is already forming: Highway Horror, Young Mother Vanishes Without a Trace. Somewhere in the back row, Emily's little boy sits on his grandmother's lap, too young to understand why the grown-ups keep looking at him with that particular softness, equal parts pity and dread. He clutches a toy car in his fist, a cheap plastic thing with wheels that stick. He runs it back and forth along the wooden pew, making quiet engine noises. No one stops him. That same night, alone in his office, Reyes pins new notes to the map. He circles the diner in red, draws an arrow along the route Emily would have taken home, marking where the car was found with a thicker X. He adds a piece of paper with a crude drawing of a pickup and the words dark, older model, maybe dented underlined. On the desk, the file is thicker now. Witness statements, tip line logs, photographs. Every added page should feel like progress. Instead, it feels like someone pouring sand onto a scale that never tips. He rubs his eyes, hears the building settling around him. Somewhere down the hallway, a printer starts up on its own, spitting out a report someone forgot to collect. He thinks about driving Route 16 again, alone, seeing if something kicks in his gut the way it did at the scene. But it's late, and his wife has already called once to ask if he's coming home at all. As he reaches to close the file for the night, the phone on his desk rings. He snatches it up, breath already tight, as if he expects the caller to hand him the whole case in one trembling confession. Instead, it's a woman from 3 towns over, drunk enough that the words slur together, insisting she can feel that Emily is alive through the television. He thanks her, writes it down, adds the note to a growing pile of noise. When he finally walks out to the parking lot, the air is cooled just enough that his breath comes out in faint puffs. He stands by his car and looks up at the night. Out there, beyond the orange glow of town, Route 16 stretches across the dark like a scar. Somewhere along that scar, something happened that does not want to be seen. It has been less than 48 hours since Emily Hart walked out of the diner and into the heat. Less than 2 days since her car was found on the shoulder, door open, engine ticking as it cooled. Already, the story is slipping away from what anyone can touch or prove. No one says cold case yet, but in the quiet between ringing phones and clicking cameras, Reyes can feel the temperature dropping, degree by degree, around a mystery that has decided it wants to live in the dark. Days don't pass in that town after Emily disappears. They stack. The first week is all motion. Search grids drawn and redrawn. Volunteers signing in, grabbing orange vests and cheap flashlights from folding tables. Deputies barking out sectors. State troopers parking their cruisers at the edges of fields that have never seen this many people in daylight, much less in the gray hour just after dawn. They walk shoulder to shoulder through waist-high grass, eyes down, boots soaking in ditch, water gone sour in the heat. Every time someone pauses, everyone else stops breathing for a second. Is that fabric or trash? Bone or rock? Hope and dread become the same twitch in the gut. Helicopters thump overhead once, twice, then don't come back. Too expensive, too little to see from the air on a road that looks like any other strip of Texas from 100 feet up. The sheriff's office sends faxes to neighboring agencies, asking for anything that smells like a pattern. Other women, other cars, other lonely shoulders. For a while, the copier never cools. The missing posters go up everywhere. Emily's photo, blown up slightly too big, losing sharpness in the process. Her eyes are a fraction blurrier than they were in life. Underneath, in stark black type, last seen July 3rd, 1:06 a.m. Any information, call. The word, reward, appears in red by the end of the week, amount to be determined, as if money could coax the truth out of someone's throat. Reyes moves through all of this like a man swimming upstream. He's in the field at dawn, in the diner by noon, in the interview rooms past midnight. His notepad fills with names and half-remembered details, his ashtray with cigarette, but he'll claim later he never smoked. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees the map on his wall, the 3 points that still refuse to connect. On the 4th day, a tip hits the line that feels different. A waitress from a town 40 miles down Route 16 calls, voice tight. She saw the segment on the news, the photo of Emily, the description of the man in the corner booth. She thinks she knows him, thinks he's been sitting in her own diner, in her own corner, watching her and the other girls with that same flat gaze. He comes in late, she says. Always alone. Black pickup with a busted tailgate, parked where he can see the door but not be seen much from the road. Gives me the wrong kind of feeling. She did something almost no one thinks to do in the moment. She wrote his plate number on a napkin and tucked it under the register. Not because she thought he'd end up on the news, but because she didn't trust the way her hands shook when he smiled. By the time she fishes that napkin out and reads the numbers over the line, Reyes is already reaching for a pen. He runs the plate. Old truck, registered to a Daniel Cross. No fixed address, just a post office box and a string of temporary work histories. Mechanic here, day laborer there. Minor charges, drunk in public, disorderly conduct, trespassing. Nothing that screams killer, but nothing that says solid citizen either. He doesn't wait. A quick call to the county where the truck is registered gives him a starting point. A trailer park 3 miles off the highway, the kind of place where rust and vinyl siding share equal weight. He drives out alone, dust tailing him like a ghost. Late afternoon has turned the sky into a bleached sheet. Kids bike between trailers. Someone grills, meat on a rusted barrel. Dogs bark from behind chain-link fences, their chains scraping metal posts. The black pickup is impossible to miss, crouched beside a dented single-wide, paint dull, tailgate missing, passenger door a different shade, like someone replaced it after a wreck and never bothered to match the color. The rear bumper has a strip of duct tape over a crack. It looks exactly like the kind of truck you imagine when someone says, "Old black pickup." He stands there for a moment, letting the scene settle in his bones. Then he knocks. The door swings, open on the second hit. Daniel Cross fills the frame. Bare chest, jeans slung low, a smear of oil on one shoulder like a badge. He's in his late 20s, but his eyes look older, worn thin. He squints at the badge, then at Reyes' face, like he's measuring how much trouble just arrived on his steps. "Afternoon," Reyes says. "You Daniel Cross. Who wants to know?" They go through the dance. Badge, name, explanation short on details. Reyes asks if they can talk. Cross leans against the door jamb, making no move to invite him in. "You ever eat at the Lone Star Diner up in Hartwell?" Reyes asks. "Place off Main, neon sign, open all night." Cross shrugs, scratches his chest. "I go through a lot of little towns, man. Move cars, fix trucks. Coffee is coffee. Were you there on the night of July 3rd? Another shrug, this one sharper. "That's what, almost a week ago. I don't keep a diary for my stomach. We've got a waitress says she saw you. Black truck, busted tailgate, you sitting in the corner. Watching. Pretty sure that ain't a crime." Reyes feels the edge come into his own voice. "A young woman went missing later that night. We found her car on Route 16. Door open. Purse inside." Cross's gaze flicks over him, quick, assessing. Something like recognition passes through the air, not of Emily, but of the dance they're doing. Predator and hunter, each pretending they're just talking. "Sad story," Cross says finally, "but I don't see how that's my business." "Mind if I take a look at your truck?" Reyes asks. "Clear this up." Cross hesitates, just long enough to register. Then he grins, wide and mean. "Be my guest," he says. "You want to waste your afternoon crawling around in the back of an old Chevy? Go ahead. I ain't got nothing to hide." He signs the consent form with a flourish, like giving them permission is a game he intends to win. The search is messy but thorough. The bed is littered with tools, empty fast food bags, a stained blanket stiff with old sweat. They bag fibers, hairs, anything that might matter later. In the cab they find cigarette butts, a handful of receipts from gas stations up and down the highway, a matchbook from a bar 3 towns over. No weapon. No scrap of clothing that screams Emily's name. Reyes stands back, watching Tex with powder and tape work the wheel, the handles, the dashboard. Every good lift gets its own little envelope. His mind keeps flipping to the abandoned Chevy on Route 16, to the smudged prints on the door, the steering column. If any of those match the ones they're lifting now, he knows better than to let his hope get ahead of the lab. Back in the shade of the trailer's small awning, he talks to Cross some more while they work. Where were you early morning July 3rd? Reyes asks. Between midnight and 3. Cross chews on the inside of his cheek, thinking. Or pretending to. Working on a rig with a buddy, he says finally. Out at his cousin's place. He'll tell you. What's his name? Joe. Or John. You can ask around. Reyes doesn't bother writing that down. You live alone here. For now. Anyone can vouch for you being here that night. Cross laughs without humor. You trying to say you're going to lock me up because I don't throw parties on a Thursday? It goes on like that, every question sliding off him like water. He never outright refuses to answer, never asks for a lawyer, never breaks. He stays just cooperative enough to be smug, just vague enough to be dangerous. When the search wraps, they have a small mountain of bagged evidence and nothing solid enough to slap cuffs on him for anything but the old misdemeanors already filling his record. You done? Cross asks, leaning against his door, arms crossed. For now, Reyes says. As he walks back to his car, he can feel Cross's eyes on his back, heavy and hot. He doesn't look over his shoulder. He doesn't give him that. At the station, they rush the prints to the lab. The techs, already drowning in work, bump it to the top of the pile when they see the case number. They dust, they photograph, they compare the swirls and loops to the ones lifted from Emily's car. In 1987, there is no instant digital ping, no computer spitting out a percentage match in seconds. There is a room with magnifiers and cards and human eyes. People line prints side by side and look for the same 30 points in the whirls. They work late. Reyes haunts the hallway outside, wearing a track in the linoleum. Every so often, someone brings him bad coffee and says it might be a while. He nods, pretends patience. Near midnight, the print tech steps into the hallway, rubbing her eyes. He reads the answer on her face before she says a word. We've got some overlaps, she says. Similar pattern. But the latents from the car door and wheel are partial, smudged. I can't say it's him. I also can't say it's not him. Not with what we've got. Is there anything that's a clean match? He asks. She hesitates. We've got one partial from the trunk latch that's closer. But it's still not enough for court. You know how this goes. If I swear under oath it's him, and opposing counsel brings in another expert who says maybe it isn't, your case is toast. He closes his eyes, just for a second. He's been a cop long enough to know the answer to the question he wants to ask next, but he asks anyway. So, for the record, she says carefully, there are similarities between the unknown prints from the victim's vehicle and Daniel Cross's known prints, but they cannot be conclusively matched with current methods. Current methods. 2 words he swallows like broken glass. The DA is blunt when he brings her what he has. A suspicious guy in a truck, a waitress who doesn't like his stare, a car found on a highway, partial prints that might be his, might not. No body, no confession, no eyewitness who saw him on Route 16 with Emily. You want me to take this in front of a jury, she says, tapping the thin stack of paper. What do I tell them when the defense asks where the blood is? Where the forensic evidence is? Where the actual proof is that this man was anywhere near that girl's car when she vanished? He fits, Reyes says, hearing the thinness in his own argument and hating it. The timing, the truck, the pattern. He hangs around diners late at night. Every waitress we talk to gets the same bad feeling. Bad feelings don't convict people, she says. And you know that. You bring me a body, or a witness, or something that ties him to that car tighter than a maybe in the lab, and I'll sign whatever you put in front of me. Until then, keep looking, because if you arrest him on this and he walks, he's gone for good. Reyes leaves her office with the file feeling heavier in his hand. In the parking lot, he leans against his car and stares at the strip of sky visible between buildings. It's darkening to that deep blue that makes the streetlights flicker on, one by one. In living rooms around town, Emily's face is on the news again. This time the graphics department has added a banner, still missing. A reporter stands by Route 16, wind tugging at his tie, talking about new developments and a potential person of interest, though Cross's name is not released. Legal caution. No one wants a defamation lawsuit on top of a mystery. At the diner, the night shift is different now. They keep the doors locked after midnight. serve only through the counter window. The corner booth stays empty by unofficial agreement. The manager says it's bad luck to sit there. Girls who need the money too much think about quitting every time they see a pair of headlights pause outside, then move on. Parents change the rules in their houses. Curfews move earlier. Keys are collected at the door. No more solo drives out of town, not for a while. Every newscast with the words, highway abduction, makes someone reach for the remote. Emily's mother stops sleeping. She sits in a living room whose air smells like worry, television flickering softly in the corner with volume down low. Her grandson plays with his cars on the rug, making little siren noises, not understanding why his world has shrunk to this room and the adults whispering in the kitchen. Reyes's own wife starts to measure their life in this case, too. Nights he doesn't come home in time to say goodnight to the kids. Weekends he spends driving gravel roads instead of taking them to the park. She doesn't say you're obsessed, because she knows that's part of what makes him good at his job. But she does say one night, "What happens if you can't fix this one?" He doesn't answer, because he doesn't know how. Weeks tick by. Leads thin. The search parties get smaller. Volunteers have to go back to work, to lives that were paused but not stopped. The posters on bulletin boards curl at the edges. Rain warps the paper on the telephone poles. Some eventually peel away, leaving behind ghost rectangles of cleaner wood. The file on Reyes's desk grows slowly now instead of in sudden bursts. A few more tips. A psychic from out of state who sends a letter describing a vision of a shallow grave near water. A hunter who swears he heard something in the woods. Each is logged, evaluated, set aside. He doesn't forget about Daniel Cross. He drives by that trailer park more than he needs to, taking the long way back from other calls. Sometimes the black pickup is there. Sometimes it's gone. Once, he sees Cross on the step, smoking, watching the road. Their eyes meet across the distance. No gestures, no words, just a shared acknowledgement that the game isn't over, even if the clock has slowed. In the bullpen, other cases pile up. Burglaries, bar fights, a domestic dispute that ends with a man in the hospital. Life goes on being violent in smaller, pettier ways. The sheriff can't afford to keep half his detectives on one missing person case forever, not when there are victims whose blood is still fresh. Gradually, inevitably, the language in the morning briefings changes. Any new leads on Hart becomes, anything worth revisiting this week? The urgency cools. The lights on the map in Reyes's office dim. The word he's been dreading finally shows up, first in a quiet conversation between the sheriff and the DA, then in an internal memo about resource allocation. Cold. Cold case. Not closed, not forgotten, not solved. Just cooled, moved to the back burner. Given a label that admits what no one wants to say out loud, that for now, the darkness at mile marker 27 is winning. Reyes reads the memo alone, then folds it into the file. On the tab he writes, in smaller letters than before, open/inactive. The contradiction gnaws at him. Open, but not actively pursued. Alive, but on life support. He stares at Emily's photo one more time before turning off the office light. In it, she is frozen in a second that had no idea what was coming. Behind her eyes is a future that's been stolen so completely they can't even find where it ended. Out on Route 16, late-night traffic still hums. Trucks still roar past the spot where her car once sat. Drivers who weren't even born in 1987 change lanes there without thinking. They don't feel the temperature drop just slightly as they pass the place where a young woman stepped out of her car and vanished into the hot Texas dark, leaving behind a case file that will spend the next 38 years slowly gathering dust, waiting for the single, ordinary moment, a broken taillight on another night, when all that buried cold starts to move again. Years start to pile up the way dust does in that evidence room downstairs, slowly, invisibly, until one day you look up and realize everything is wearing the same thin gray coat. The first anniversary of Emily's disappearance comes with candles and cameras. The church parking lot fills again. Reporters who cover the story last year return with slightly newer equipment and slightly more jaded eyes. They shoot B-roll of hands holding photographs, lips moving in prayer, children drowsy on pews. The anchors say words like, still missing, like ongoing investigation, like no answers. They don't say what the town feels, that the line between hope and denial is razor thin and everyone's feet are bleeding. By the second anniversary, there are fewer microphones. The third makes the front page of a local paper, but only the bottom half. By the fifth, it's a single column on the inside, next to a story about school board elections and a farm equipment sale. The photo they use is the same one from that first week, just more faded each time it's reprinted. Emily's face turns into something less like a person and more like an icon, a symbol for all the things that vanish and never come back. Every so often, the case jerks back to life on a false beat. Hunters stumble on bones in the brush. Construction crews dig up something pale in a trench. The call goes out like a reflex. Patrol cars scream toward coordinates that make Reyes a stomach clench. He drives faster than he should, imagining blue fabric in the dirt, a necklace half buried, the corner of a driver's license peeking from the soil. And every time it's not her. Deer skeleton, coyote, cow. Once, a shallow grave with a rusted metal cross that turns out to be a long-forgotten family pet. Another time, remains from an entirely different missing person. A man whose disappearance was barely a footnote when it happened, now solved almost by accident on Emily's time. Detectives from that family shake his hand and thank him. He smiles and nods and can't quite meet their eyes, because he knows some other cop somewhere is standing in a field like this, feeling the same hollow victory. Emily's mother learns to live around the hole. She keeps her daughter's room almost exactly as it was, not out of denial, but because changing it would feel like accepting a verdict no one has handed down yet. She folds tiny shirts for her grandson, clips coupons, watches the mail slot as if answers might come in an envelope. She stops answering the phone if it's a number she doesn't know. Too many callers claiming to have visions, dreams, secret knowledge. Too many strangers who talk about her daughter like she's a character in a story instead of the person who used to leave coffee cups in the sink. The boy grows. At first, he asks simple questions. When is Mommy coming home? The answers are clumsy, soft-edged. The police are looking. We don't know yet. As he gets older, the questions sharpen. What exactly happened? Who took her? Why didn't anyone stop it? There are no soft answers for those. Only the blunt truth that sometimes, even when you do everything right, the dark gets there first. By the time he's 10, other kids whisper about his mother on the playground. People tell the story with shifting details. The wrong night, the wrong highway, adding violence that may or may not have happened, but the core never changes. Girl from the diner. Empty car. Black pickup. No body. No ending. Parents use it as a warning. Don't hitchhike. Don't stay out late. Don't trust strangers who honk at you on back roads. The missing waitress becomes a ghost you can scare kids with if you say the name just right. The diner changes hands. The neon sign flickers out one night and is replaced with a newer, harsher light. The name above the door switches, but the regulars keep calling it by the old one for years. New waitresses start who never knew Emily personally. They learn the story the way you learn local weather patterns, what streets flood, which dogs on which porches will bite. Route 16 becomes that road, said with a particular tilt of the head. Inside the sheriff's office, cases keep coming. Burglaries, assaults, ugly family secrets that crawl out into the open. Alan Reyes solves some, fails at others, carries all of them in the set of his shoulders. The heart file moves from his desk to a drawer, then from that drawer to a cabinet, not because he stopped caring, but because there is only so much space on the surface of his life. Still, he pulls it out. On anniversaries. On nights when another young woman goes missing somewhere else and sanity demands he check for overlap, for pattern, for anything at all. He runs new reports, revisits old interviews, stares again at the name, Daniel Cross, on list after list. He drives past the trailer park where the black truck used to sit, only to find that after a year, then 2, then 5, the pickup is gone. The lot where it parked is empty. The trailer stands with new tenants, a different couch on the front step. Guy moved on. A neighbor tells him, leaning on a rake. Headed north, I think. Didn't leave a forwarding address. Why would he? For a while, Reyes tracks crossed by rumor and luck. A bar fight in another county. A traffic citation 2 states away. A note on a teletype that mentions a mechanic picked up for trespassing in a scrapyard. Same birth date. Same middle initial. The trail is smudged partial, just like those prints on Emily's car. He logs everything he finds. It never quite adds up to the knock on the door and the cuffs he wants. In the early 90s, the state rolls out something new. AFIS, they call it. Automated Fingerprint Identification System. An entire warehouse of machines and promise. Old ink cards are dragged out of boxes, fingers worth of black ridges and loops fed into scanners. The idea is intoxicating. Match unknown to known in minutes instead of days. Pull connections out of a database big enough to feel like the whole world. The Hart case earns a place in the priority stack. Those smudged latents from the Chevy's door and trunk, once held up under magnifying glasses by tired human eyes, are digitized, enhanced as much as they can be. A technician uploads them into the system, lets the algorithm chew. The first time AFIS searches, it spits out a list of possibilities. People with similar whorls and arches, thousands of miles away, arrested for crimes that have nothing to do with the Texas highway. The matches are too weak, the quality of the originals too poor. Best we can say is they're now in the system, the lab chief tells Reyes. Somewhere down the line, if your guy gets printed in any state that plays nice with ours, we might get a stronger hit. Might, Reyes repeats, rolling the word around like a pebble in his mouth. The latents from Emily's car become data. Strings of code, entries in a database that will grow until it holds millions of lives in compressed form. Somewhere in there, the ghost of a night in 1987 flickers on a server hard drive. It is progress. It doesn't feel like it. The 90s grind forward. A recession hits. Crime spikes, then shifts. The sheriff's office gets new computers and fewer deputies. Cold cases are something the sergeant talks about with a sigh during budget meetings. We'll do what we can, he says. But we've got more fresh bodies than time as it is. Reyes keeps at it. He revisits the waitress down the highway who gave him Cross's plate. She's older now, worn by 1,000 late-night shifts. I still see his face sometimes, she admits over a cup of coffee, hands trembling just a little. But I don't know if it's because I remember him or because I've seen your sketch so many times. Memory is treacherous that way. Emily's son hits his teens. One afternoon, he shows up at the sheriff's office door. Reyes nearly doesn't recognize him at first. So much height and angle where there used to be softness. But the eyes are the same. Emily's eyes. They sit in Reyes's office, the boy's knees bouncing, hands jammed into his hoodie. I want to know what you're doing, he says. No preamble. No pleasantries. Everyone keeps saying you're still working the case. What does that mean, really? Reyes doesn't lie. He lays it out without the procedural polish. They chase leads. They hit walls. They have a suspect they believe in but can't prove. They're waiting on a science that keeps catching up too slowly. He watches the young man absorb it, jaw tightening, anger and helplessness warring in his expression. So he's just out there, the boy asks, living, eating, sleeping. While my mom, his voice cracks, then breaks. He doesn't finish the sentence. We haven't stopped watching, Reyes says. I haven't. I know that doesn't feel like enough. It isn't enough, but I'm not done. The boy stands to leave. At the door, he turns back. If you ever find out what happened, he says, I don't care if I'm across the world. Call me. I will, Reyes says. Another promise, stacked on the first. Time does what it always does. It wears people down. Emily's mother gets sick. The kind of illness that doesn't care how many pills you swallow or how positive you try to be. In her last months, she talks about Emily as if she's just gone to another room and might walk back in if the conversation is interesting enough. Reyes visits once, stands awkwardly by the bed, hat in his hands. I know you did what you could, she tells him, voice thin but steady. I know the world doesn't always give us answers, but if you ever do tell my grandson the truth, don't make it prettier for him. He's had enough lies. She dies without an answer. The funeral is small and heavy. Reyes stands in the back, listening to hymns, thinking about how grief changes shape but never really disappears. One more person who carried Emily in her chest is gone. The circle of witnesses shrinks. The new millennium rolls in with cheap fireworks and shiny predictions about the future. The sheriff's office gets a fax about additional federal funding for cold cases. Somewhere in the paperwork is a line about pushing old fingerprints and DNA through improved national systems. Reyes, now with more gray at his temples than black, resubmits the heart evidence again through newer channels with newer acronyms. Cody's, NGI, words that weren't in his vocabulary when he first stood by that abandoned car. Technicians in a central lab pull the samples. The prints from Emily's Chevy go through one more round of digitization, optimized for systems that can cross-check against databases from other states, even other countries. This time, they don't just sit on a local server. They echo out, cloned across machines humming in rooms, lit by the cold glow of monitor light. They still don't match anyone cleanly. Not yet. Out there, beyond Reyes's reach, Daniel Cross keeps being Daniel Cross. He drifts. New trailer parks. New diners. New nights parked outside places that smell like coffee and fear. He gets older. The edges of his danger sand down in the eyes of people who only see a tired man with a bad truck and a worse back. Eventually, he slips up in a way that isn't just moral. A bar fight goes too far. A break-in leaves too much broken glass. In some other state with its own docket of misery, he ends up face down on a hood under a different set of flashing lights. Local cops roll his fingers in ink, or, now, press them on a sleek glass pad that captures every ridge in high resolution. His prints go into that state system, then up the chain to the national one. In a windowless room, on a server stacked with hundreds of cases just like Emily's, a program does exactly what it was built to do. It compares. It cross-references. It hunts for points where lines intersect. One set of ridges from a middle-aged mechanic's hand. One from a smudged steering wheel in Texas, 1987. For the first time, the system doesn't shrug. It pings. Not a perfect match, but close. Close enough that a little flag pops up on a screen at a cold case unit half a country away. A tech frowns, clicks, pulls up the old file on the missing waitress. Reads the date. Reads the words, possible person of interest. Daniel Cross, already scribbled there in Reyes's handwriting from decades before. Guess someone called it before we did, she mutters. A report is generated. It winds its way back through channels slower than the algorithm that spawned it. Someone adds a note to Cross's file. Prints associated with open homicide/missing person investigation. Texas, 1987. Subject to be detained on contact. Notify originating agency. A hold is put into the system. Quiet, deadly simple. It sits there like a tripwire across a dark path. Then life goes on. The tech goes to lunch. The detective assigned to the cold case unit pins a fresh copy of Emily's faded photo to a newer board and circles Cross's name in red. Reyes, officially retired now, fishing more than he should and sleeping less than he'd like, doesn't know yet that somewhere, in a database that speaks a language he never learned, someone has finally drawn a straight line between his ghost and the man he's been chasing on instinct alone for 38 years. On another night, in another patrol car, a younger deputy, one who grew up hearing the story of the girl on Route 16 like a campfire tale, will punch a name into his in-car computer and wait for it to spit out the usual. License status, warrants, maybe a note about failure to pay a fine. Instead, that quiet tripwire will snap. The screen will flash a message that reaches all the way back to 1987. And somewhere, in a cardboard box in an evidence room, the air around the heart file will shift. Not because the paper knows anything, but because for the first time since that door swung open on Route 16, the cold isn't just sitting there. It's starting to move. The screen in the patrol car doesn't make a sound when it changes his life. It just blinks once, redraws the text, and shows him something he's never seen before. The deputy squints at the glowing green letters. Name, Cross, Daniel R. License, expired. Warrants, one out of state, failure to appear. Below that, in a different font, a line that makes his throat go dry. Hold, contact originating agency. Associated with open homicide/missing person case. Texas 1987. Do not release without supervisor authorization. The cab of the cruiser feels too small suddenly, the night pressing against the glass. He's heard stories in the break room about that year, that road, that waitress whose car was found with the door hanging open. He grew up in a different county, but the story spread. Diner. Empty Chevy. No body. No ending. He looks up through the windshield at the man standing between the headlights, hands resting on the hood of the old pickup, shoulders slouched like he's done this too many times to be scared. Just another driver, just another stop. Except the computer says he's carrying a string tied all the way back to 1987. County, this is 302. The deputy says into the radio, voice steady because training says it has to be. Can you confirm a hold on the subject name Daniel Cross? Date of birth 5760? He reads the code off the screen. Silence. Then the dispatcher's voice comes back flatter, more focused than before. Affirmative, 302. Stand by. There's a pause. He imagines another screen lighting up back at the center, a supervisor leaning over someone's shoulder, reading the same words. Then, 302, you're advised to detain and transport. Subject flagged out of Cold Case Division, reference file Hart, Emily. 22-year-old missing person. Last seen July 3rd, 1987. Copy. The name hits him like a small, precise hammer. He's seen that file tab in the evidence room. Hart, Emily a open schlecht inactive. He's seen the photo pinned on the bulletin board in the hallway, yellowed at the edges. He didn't know he was going to drive straight into it tonight. Copy, he says, requesting backup for transport. His hand finds the door handle, weighs it. Advise Cold Case they may have their guy. Behind him, the man shifts his weight, a faint jingle of keys or change. The deputy steps out into the wash of his own headlights, hand resting on his holster in a way that isn't habit now, it's need. Mr. Cross, he calls, walking toward him. I'm going to need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back. The man doesn't argue, doesn't ask why, just turns, slowly, like this has been waiting for him all along. His wrists come together, skin leathery under the steel. As the cuffs click closed, he lifts his head and looks out into the dark beyond the patrol car, not at the deputy, not at the road. You boys finally got around to me, huh? He says quietly. The deputy doesn't answer. He walks him to the back seat, guiding his head under the door. As he closes it, there's a flicker of his own reflection in the glass, superimposed over Cross's face. For a second, they look like the same person, old and young stacked together by accident. At the station, word moves faster than paper. The phrase, Emily Hart, rides the radio waves, bounces off walls, rolls under doors. By the time they lead Cross through the side entrance in cuffs, half the night shift is pretending they're not watching. They put him in a holding cell, the kind with 2 benches and a bolted-down toilet, bars instead of plexiglass, because this is still a building that remembers when everything was built that way. He sits, elbows on knees, hands dangling, head bowed. Not repentant, not panicked, just patient. Upstairs, the shift sergeant scrolls through the incoming report on his desktop. He's older than the deputy, old enough to remember wearing a black band on his badge the week they gave up the ground searches for Emily Hart. He reads the notations on the hold, the cross-reference to the cold case file, and feels his chest tighten. He picks up the phone, dials the number embedded in the note. Cold Case Division, State Bureau. It rings too many times before a tired voice answers. Cold Case, Morales. This is Sergeant Blake, Hartwell County, he says. We've got a Daniel Cross in holding. Traffic stop. System flagged him as associated with your Hart, Emily file. There's a pause on the other end. Chair creak, the sound of a drawer sliding open. When Morales speaks again, the fatigue is gone. You sure on the ID? Positive. Prints on intake match what's in the system. Photo lines up with what you've got. Send it over, Morales says. But if it's the same Cross, you might have just tripped the wire on one of our oldest ghosts. He fires off the intake photo. 30 seconds later, Morales calls back. That's him, she says. Older. But him. Sit on him tight. No bond, no release. I'm waking up some people. One of those people is Reyes. He's not Detective Reyes anymore. The badge is in a box on a shelf by the door, next to fishing lures and a photo of his kids when they were still small enough to fit under one arm. Retirement has given him a softer paunch and a harder time sleeping. The phone ringing at 4:12 a.m. is not unusual. The voice on the other end is, Ellen, it's Morales. State Cold Case. You awake? He sits up in bed, instant. I am now. There's a rustle of paper, the scratch of a pen on the other end as if she's reading while she talks. Hartwell County just pulled in a traffic stop. Name came back Cross, Daniel Richard. Date of birth matches your POI on the heart case. Our system linked his intake prints to the latents from her Chevy. The match strength crossed the threshold last time we upgraded AFIS. You know what that means. He swings his legs out of bed, the cold floor waking the ache in his knees. It means the computer just did what we couldn't, he says. His heart is beating too fast for a man his age. How tight is the match? Tighter than it's ever been, she says. Not perfect. Those original latents were garbage, but enough for probable cause, enough for a warrant, enough to drag him into a room and ask him why his hands were on her car. He stares into the dark of his bedroom. The shape of his nightstand, the glow of the digital clock, all of it seems suddenly unreal, background to a voice reaching out from 1987 and yanking him back. I thought he was gone, he says. Cross. I thought we lost him out of state somewhere. Looks like he found his way home, Morales says. I'm putting a team together to head down. But the sheriff there asked for you by name. You're the one who built this case. You want in? There's a beat where he almost says no, where he thinks about his wife in the next room, about the doctor's gentle warning last year about stress and blood pressure. Then Emily's photo, the real one, not the photocopied poster, flashes behind his eyes. Her mother's hand on his sleeve in that interview room, gripped like a drowning woman's. I'll be there in an hour, he says. At the station, the building looks the same from the outside. Brick, flags, the faded sheriff sign over the main entrance. Inside, it's a different world. New computers, new faces, new posters on the walls about mental health and de-escalation. He moves through the lobby like a ghost visiting his own life. The young deputy from the traffic stop stares when he walks in. He recognizes him from stories, not from sight. The old detective who never let go of the waitress on Route 16. Reyes nods once, a greeting and a thanks roll together. Good work, he tells him. Stopping him. Just doing my job, sir, the deputy says, though part of him is lit up with the realization that sometimes doing your job means walking straight into history. They take Reyes downstairs, to records. The evidence room smells the same as it always did. Dry paper, cardboard, a faint undernote of glue and old dust. Rows of metal shelves marching into the shadows. Boxes stacked, labeled, some newer than others. The clerk on duty runs a finger along the spines, finds the one he wants. Heart, Emily a open Schlesch inactive. He pulls the box out, sets it on the table. It's heavier than it used to be. Time has added weight. Reyes lifts the lid back like he's opening a coffin. Inside, the file he knows too well. Photos, maps, old interview notes written in his handwriting, line after line of his younger self's questions. He picks up the top sheet, sees the word he wrote himself years ago, and hated as soon as he did. Cold. Someone else added case in a different pen. The irony makes his mouth twist. On another shelf, a smaller box holds the physical remnants of that night. The snapped heel from a cheap high heel. Fibers. A scrap of plastic with a few smeared ridges that once came off a greasy hand on a trunk latch. He thinks about how long those little fragments have been waiting for this morning. Upstairs in the briefing room, someone has already tacked fresh copies of Emily's photo to a whiteboard. A blown-up map from the old days is pinned beside a new, digital printout from Google that shows the same stretch of highway now, with more driveways, more lights. The past and present layered in paper. Morales arrives with 2 analysts from the state, lugging laptops and thick binders. She hugs Reyes briefly, a quick, careful squeeze, then gets right to it. We're treating this as a live homicide investigation, she tells the assembled detectives and the sheriff. We have a subject in custody flagged by national systems. His known prints now rate as a high probability match to latents from the victim's vehicle. His pattern of movement and behavior aligns with the original profile. We move smart and we move fast. The sheriff looks older than Reyes remembers, but his eyes are still sharp. We've got him on an old warrant anyway, he says. He's not walking out the front door. Question is, how hard do we push before we've got all our ducks in a row? Reyes flips through the updated AFIS report Morales slides in front of him. The images are cleaner than anything he saw in '87. Side-by-side comparisons, red lines marking corresponding ridge endings and bifurcations. 30 points, 30 tiny anchors tying Cross's fingertips to the metal of Emily's Chevy. Hard, Reyes says, but not sloppy. We don't get a do-over on this. They run through everything they know. The waitress's original statement about the man in the corner booth. The old search of Cross's truck. His alibis from that week, shaky and half-verified. His movements in the years since. The recent arrest that got his prints upgraded in the system. Each piece clicks into place on the board, red markers circling his name, drawing arrows that all converge on the same point. DA's on her way, the sheriff says. She wants to be in the loop before we put him in a room. Reyes looks at the clock. Every minute they talk feels like a minute Cross is using to rehearse. Downstairs, in the holding cell, Cross sits with his back against the wall, head tipped up, eyes following a crack in the ceiling. The fluorescent light hums. He counts the flickers. He's been in cells like this in more towns than he can remember. Drunk and disorderly. Trespassing. A night. A fine. A chewing out from a judge. Nothing that led to anyone dusting off a box with a dead girl's name on it. A deputy walks by, pretending not to stare. Cross smiles, slow and small. Lot of fuss for a busted tail light, he drawls. The deputy says nothing. He's been explicitly told to keep it that way. No small talk. No offhand comments. No feeding the defense anything they can twist later. But he can't help glancing once at the man's hands, at the way they rest loose on his knees, nails short, skin cracked, the tips that once touched a car door on Route 16. I didn't say I wanted a lawyer, Cross adds. That's usually what gets everybody this nervous. Someone will be with you shortly, the deputy mutters, moving on. In the conference room, the DA arrives with a legal pad and a face that has seen plenty of murder, but never this particular ghost. She listens as Morales runs through the new evidence, as Reyes fills in the old. So bottom line, she says, tapping her pen, we've got a strong forensic link, a pattern of behavior, prior proximity to the victim, and a hold that says our suspect has been orbiting this case for 38 years. What we don't have is a confession. What we definitely don't have is a body. She looks at Reyes. You think he'll talk? He remembers the smirk on Cross's face all those years ago, the way he leaned in the trailer doorway and dared them to find something. He'll talk, Reyes says. The question is whether he says anything true. Then we make it very clear how much we already know, she says. And we record every word. The interrogation room is the same one in design as the rooms of his memory, but everything else is new. Fresh paint, new table, discreet camera in the corner instead of the obvious one bolted to the wall. They set it up anyway. On the metal surface, a photo of Emily, the clearest one they have. A blown-up shot of her abandoned Chevy on Route 16. The print comparison sheets, neatly stacked. Reyes lays his old notebook beside them, the pages yellowed, the ink faded but legible. July 1987 is written at the top of the first. He stands at the one-way glass for a moment, looking in at the empty chair where Cross will sit. It's a strange feeling, seeing the outline of a moment you've been chasing most of your life finally take shape. This is what it looks like when a headline starts to write itself. Texas 1987 cold case solved. Routine traffic stop uncovers fugitive. He can already hear the anchors saying it, feel the swell of relief people will pretend to feel. He also knows better than anyone in this building that solved is a word that can lie. The deputy leads Cross in. The cuffs come off, and the door shuts with a heavy click. Cross rolls his shoulders, takes in the room, the camera, the photos on the table. His eyes pause on Emily's face for half a second, unreadable. Then Reyes steps through the opposite door. For a moment, the past and present stand across from each other. The old detective, more lined now, hair gone at the temples, and the man he once cornered in a trailer park, both of them carrying 38 years on their backs. Cross tilts his head, that small, taunting smile flickering. Well, look at that, he says. Didn't expect to see you again, old man. Reyes pulls out the chair, sits, lays his hands flat on the table. His voice, when he speaks, is calm and low, the same cadence he used in that first interview with Emily's mother. Daniel, he says, we're going to talk about a girl named Emily Hart, and about what you've been running from since July 3rd, 1987. The recorder light goes red. Outside, in the hallway, the station hums, the sound of phones, keyboards, someone laughing too loudly in the break room because they don't know what else to do. In the evidence room, the heart box sits open, its contents breathing air for the first time in years. On Route 16, cars fly past mile marker 27, their headlights sweeping over a stretch of shoulder that looks like any other. Inside the room, the cold is finally face to face with the heat. The room feels too small for both of them. The walls seem to lean in, the air too still, the hum of the camera in the corner loud enough to fill the silence. Reyes watches Cross for a long beat before saying anything. The man has aged. Sure, hair gray at the temples, lines dug deep from sun and years, but the eyes are the same. Flat, steady, color of worn asphalt. The kind of eyes that give nothing and take everything. You know why you're here, Reyes says finally. Cross leans back in the chair, arms loose at his sides. Got pulled over. Tail light, he says. Guess you folks take broken bulbs real serious these days. Reyes doesn't bite. He slides the folder across the table, flips it open. The first thing inside is Emily's photo. The same one from the old flyers. Her smile still catching the light like she doesn't know it's about to go out. You remember her? He asks. Cross glances down. Quick. A reflex more than interest. Then he shrugs. Can't say I do. You sure? Reyes asks. She served you coffee one night. July 3rd, 1987. Corner booth, Lone Star Diner. You left cash on the table. That's 38 years ago, Cross says, voice dry. I barely remember breakfast. Reyes leans in. But you remember the truck. The black one. Pushed at tailgate. Mismatched door. You remember the waitress who made a joke about how you gave her the creeps. Cross's jaw tightens, almost imperceptibly. You're reaching, old man. Am I? Reyes flips to the next photo. The Chevy. Blue paint dulled. Door hanging open. Gravel disturbed like something was dragged. She left the diner at 1:06 a.m. 15 minutes later. Her car was found abandoned off Route 16. Purse inside. Shoe in the dirt. Prints all over the car. Most of them hers. One set that wasn't. He pauses, lets the silence stretch. Yours. Cross's gaze flicks up sharp. Then the smirk returns, a ghost crawling back onto his face. You sure about that? Reyes slides the print comparison sheet forward, the red lines connecting the tiny swirls and loops. Technology's better now. 30 points of correspondence. You want to argue with math. Cross taps a finger on the table, slow and deliberate. So maybe I touched her car, he says. I fixed a lot of cars. Maybe she had a flat. Maybe I gave her a hand. Funny, Reyes says. You never mentioned that in 1987. Nobody asked. Cross shoots back. Reyes's voice doesn't rise. We did ask. You said you didn't know her. Didn't know the diner. Didn't know Route 16. Maybe I forgot, Cross says. You get to my age, things blur. Reyes studies him. He's seen guilt before. Panic, fear, denial, but this isn't that. This is something worse. A man who knows the world has already written his story and is deciding how much of it he wants to play along with. You moved around a lot after that, Reyes says. Different towns, different jobs, always near a highway, always near late-night diners. You know how many waitresses went missing between 1987 and 1993 along your routes. Cross's smile fades by a millimeter. You saying I killed them all, too. I'm saying you leave a pattern, Reyes says. And patterns don't lie. For the first time, Cross leans forward. You've been chasing my pattern for 38 years, he says, his voice low and sharp now. Tell me something. Detective, what did that get you? A box of old paper and no body. You ever stop to think maybe the reason you never found her is because there's nothing to find? Reyes holds his gaze. You think she just disappeared? I think people go missing all the damn time, Cross says. You think the desert cares what name's on the license plate? The words hang there heavy. The way he says the desert makes it sound like a memory, not a metaphor. Reyes feels it, a tiny crack opening in the armor. He doesn't move, doesn't even breathe. What desert, Daniel? Cross doesn't answer. He leans back again, arms crossing, smile returning. You see ghosts, old man. You start hearing things that ain't there. Reyes opens another folder, spreads photos across the table. You remember this, he says. We found your truck back then. Same model, Same color. Fibers in the bed. Blanket with traces of sweat and oil. We tested what we could, but the science wasn't there yet. Now it is. Cross doesn't look down. You're bluffing. Reyes nods slowly. You want to bet your life on that? The younger detective in the room, Morales' analyst, sitting silently behind the camera, jots a note. Cross's pulse has ticked up. His breathing has changed. The small signs they teach you to notice in interrogation school. But Reyes doesn't need training. He's been watching this man since Reagan was president. Where'd you dump her? Reyes says quietly. You don't have to pretend she's alive. We both know she isn't. But you could tell me where she is. Give her boy a grave. That's the only thing left to do, right, in this story. For the first time, the mask slips. Cross's eyes narrow, jaw flexing. He looks at the photo of Emily again, just long enough to prove he remembers her. You really think you know me? He asks, almost whispering. You think I couldn't have left that road behind and gone on living? You didn't, Reyes says. You carried it with you. Every time you drove past a woman walking alone, every time you stopped for coffee and pretended you weren't watching the girl behind the counter. You never left that road. Cross exhales through his nose, a small, humorless laugh. You talk like a preacher, he says. You want me to confess, so you can sleep at night? I haven't slept in 38 years, Reyes says. This isn't for me. The room goes still again. Outside the one-way glass, Morales shifts her weight, the sheriff's hands clasped behind his back. They can feel it, the rhythm of the conversation changing, like weather turning. Reyes reaches into the folder one last time and pulls out the oldest artifact he has, a photograph of a shoe. The heel snapped clean off, lying in the dirt beside the open car door. You remember this? He asks. You left it there. You grabbed her too fast. She stumbled. The shoe came off. We found it 20 feet from where the car Saturday. Cross's hand twitches, barely visible, like a muscle remembering something before his mind can stop it. You think that proves anything, he says, but his voice is quieter now. It proves she fought, Reyes says. It proves she didn't go willingly. Cross's eyes go cold again. Everybody fights something. The clock ticks. The tape whirs. Outside the glass, the sheriff shakes his head. He's not going to give it, he mutters. Morales watches anyway, eyes narrowed. Reyes sits back finally, the weight of decades in his shoulders. You know what's going to happen now, he says. We'll charge you. The DA will build a case on the prints, the evidence, the lies. You'll spend the rest of your life in a cage. But before that happens, you have one last chance to tell the truth. Cross looks at him, and for a heartbeat the smirk fades entirely. Truth, he repeats, as if tasting the word. You wouldn't know what to do with it if you had it. Then he smiles again, wider this time, a cruel, empty thing. You ever wonder if she's still out there, detective? Not dead, not gone, just living under a different name. Maybe she wanted to leave. Ever think of that? Reyes stares at him. That's the best lie you've got? Cross shrugs. It's prettier than the one you've been telling yourself. He leans back, folds his hands, done talking. The silence swells again. After a minute, Reyes nods to the mirror. The door opens, Morales stepping in. That's enough for now, she says. Reyes stands, slowly. Cross doesn't look up as he's let out. He just hums something low under his breath, a tune with no melody. When the door closes, Reyes exhales for the first time in what feels like an hour. Morales starts to speak, but he lifts a hand. Not yet, he says. He's staring at the empty chair where Cross sat, at the faint smear of sweat on the table, at the photo of Emily lying between them like a ghost that refuses to leave. Outside, dawn is crawling up over the horizon. The light through the blinds is pale, washed out, the color of old paper. Reporters will wake soon. Phones will ring. Someone will write the headline before noon. Texas 1987 cold case solved. Routine traffic stop uncovers fugitive. It will sound clean, triumphant, like the kind of justice that closes doors. But Reyes knows better. He knows what silence means when it comes from a man like Daniel Cross. It's not innocence. It's victory of another kind, the power to keep the secret, to hold the last piece of a story where no one else can reach it. Morales gathers the files. We'll keep pushing, she says. Maybe we can get him on forensics alone. Reyes nods. You'll get a conviction, he says, but you won't get peace. He looks down at Emily's photo again. That's still out there, he adds softly. Later, when they process Cross and lock him in a different cell, he asks for a cigarette he knows he won't get. When they tell him no, he laughs. Can't blame a man for trying, he says. Then he sits on the bunk, elbows on his knees, and hums that same wordless tune. Upstairs, Reyes packs the file, the photos, the shoe picture. Before closing the folder, he adds one more note at the bottom of his last page. Suspect Daniel Cross in custody. No confession. Victim's remains still unrecovered. Case ongoing. He closes the folder gently, like tucking a child to sleep, and looks through the glass at the sunrise spilling over the parking lot. For a moment, the light hits the window just right, and the reflection staring back at him isn't the old detective, but the young one from 1987, tie loose, eyes hollow, standing by the blue Chevy on Route 16, promising a mother he'd bring her daughter home. He whispers to no one, "I'm not done." Then he turns off the light, leaving the room dim and quiet, except for the faint hum of the camera still recording, capturing the silence that now fills the space between what's solved and what will never be. Outside, the town wakes to the kind of morning that looks normal if you don't know what just happened. Sunlight cuts across the empty courthouse square. Shopkeepers roll up metal grates. Trucks idle outside the diner that used to be called the Lone Star, where someone in a new apron brews the first batch of coffee. The sign still buzzes faintly, still flickers at the edges, as if the building remembers what the rest of the town is trying to forget. The news breaks just after 8. Local radio first, then television, then social feeds. Texas 1987 cold case solved. Routine traffic stop uncovers fugitive. The anchor's voice is bright, clipped, perfectly trained to hold both horror and satisfaction in a single breath. They read the details the way they always do. Name, location, timeline, justice finally served, as though 38 years can be wrapped up in a headline. By noon, reporters have camped outside the sheriff's office. Vans lined up, microphones blooming like weeds. The words, breaking update, pulse read at the bottom of every broadcast. People who'd been kids back then, the ones who biked past the diner windows, the ones who'd seen the posters stapled to telephone poles, now watch the story unfold with the uneasy awe of déjà vu. The ghost they grew up with suddenly has a face again. Inside, the air hums with caffeine and static. Morales' team is working through every inch of Daniel Cross's life. Property records, job sites, old aliases. A list of highways he traveled stretches across the whiteboard like veins under skin. At the center of it all, Emily's photo. Same smile, same light. The caption beneath it, "Missing, July 3rd, 1987, hasn't changed." Reyes stands off to the side, silent. A mug of coffee goes cold in his hand. He's been in rooms like this for 40 years, but this one feels different, too bright, too clean, too full of voices that don't know what 38 years of waiting feels like. Every word of excitement around him lands like a stone in his gut. "Press conference in 30, the sheriff says, glancing at him. "You can stand up there with us if you want. You've earned it." Reyes shakes his head. "This isn't a parade," he says quietly. "It's a funeral we're late to." Still, they go through the motions. By early afternoon, cameras are pointed at the podium. Reporters jostle. Lights flicker. Mics lean forward like vultures waiting for meat. The sheriff clears his throat, reads the prepared statement. After decades of investigation, we can confirm the arrest of Daniel Richard Cross, 63, in connection with the disappearance of Emily Hart. Forensic analysis has identified a match between prints recovered from the victim's vehicle and the suspect's known prints. This represents a significant breakthrough in one of Texas's longest-running unsolved cases. Applause. Questions. The word closure gets used 3 times before Reyes can stop counting. Someone asks if they found the remains. The sheriff hesitates, glances at Morales. "Not yet," he says. "But with Mr. Cross in custody, we are confident new information will lead us to a recovery site soon." Reyes can almost hear Emily's mother's voice, the way she used to say, "Don't make it prettier for him." The microphones buzz with static. Afterward, as the press disperses, a reporter corners him. Young woman, hair perfectly arranged, eyes bright with adrenaline. Detective Reyes, she says. You were the lead in 1987, right? How does it feel to finally solve a case? He looks at her for a moment before answering. Feels like 38 years too late. She blinks, expecting something more quotable, but he walks away. Back inside, Morales waves him into the lab. You need to see this, she says. They've been combing through Cross's current truck, a rusted 2005 Ford, different from the one he drove in the 80s, but carrying the same smell of gasoline and sweat. Hidden under the seat, wrapped in old cloth, they found a small box of keepsakes. Coins, lighters, cheap trinkets, and at the bottom, something that makes Reyes's breath catch, a single gold earring bent at the clasp. Morales holds it up with tweezers. We ran it against the photos from 87, she says. Look familiar? It does. In the old pictures, Emily's wearing them, small gold hoops. You can just see the glint in one of the diner shots the cook gave them. Her mother said they were a gift from her sister, Reyes says. His voice is barely there. She never took them off. DNA's degraded, Morales says. But the residue's human. Female. We'll run it through the system. Could be hers. Reyes nods slowly. Could be, he repeats, the words brittle. Downstairs,